Colin Sexton would have a career night. Jordan Clarkson to the rain. It's a 10-1 run there. Cleveland on top by 18 at the break. Tristan Thompson
swallowed that.
Yeah, he did. R.J. Barrett's shot, no match for him. And it's Sexton from 3 on the wing. And at that point, it's a 25-point lead. Larry Nance the steal. Thompson on the other end. They led by as many as 30. And an 11 straight win in New York for the Cavaliers. The Knicks are now 0-3 at home, and they've lost each of those games by at least 21. Not good. Here's David Fizdale after not only the loss, but his boss's press conference.
Home consistency is not there, and I'll take full responsibility for that. For whatever reason, it's not transferring over to when we get to the game, when we play at home. And we just got to figure it out. The work is being put in, but it's not transferring right now, and I'll figure that out.
Coach, after the solid win on Friday, why do you think you guys came out so flat tonight?
I don't know. I really don't. I know we had a hell of a shoot around today. We really prepared for this game. Again, it's like we take a step forward, and then we get home and we take a big step back. You know, it's the same thing as a result of the game, but we saw a lot of positive things that came out of that, and then we came home and we laid an egg. And, you know, I'm not sure what it is right now at home, and we just have to figure that out, and that's on me as the head coach to do that.
David, Steve and Scott talked to us in here after the game. That's pretty rare. They talked about being worried about the lack of consistency, not being happy with where the results are. Is that something they also addressed with you after this game?
Yeah, we talk a lot about everything. That's the one thing. We spend a lot of time together talking about our team and where it's at and what's going on with it. So we're always in communication with each other, and none of us are happy with it. But ultimately, that falls on me as the head coach. I have to figure out a way to build some consistency with this team throughout whatever the built-in excuses may be. And I'm not going to lean on any of those excuses. I'm going to keep driving this team to get them to a place where they can play consistent basketball, because it's in this group. You know, you don't play the Spurs the way we played the Spurs. You don't play Brooklyn the way we played them. You know, Boston, go into Dallas and get a win. You know, you just don't do those things and not be able to come back out against some of these other teams and play. But, you know, for perspective, well, a good friend of mine told me to never overreact to overreactors. We're 2 games from the 8th seed. The team that's in the 8th seed right now is 4 wins. So it's not that like, oh, my God, everybody's, you know, acting like the world is coming to an end. It's not. We just have to find our consistency in our game so that we can start playing better basketball.
I know you said you own it, but they had kind of talked about effort and consistency. Do you feel like you're getting, when guys are getting down, that you're getting the effort, that guys aren't putting their heads down?
I feel like, I feel like guys do get down. I do feel like they, you know, they lose heart. And you know, that's human condition. But again, once we got down, they fought back again. We went on a little run. I thought we were right there to try to make a run to break through, but we just didn't have enough juice left in it. Too many turnovers again. We've been doing a good job with the turnovers, but tonight they really sped us up. 21 turnovers for 27 points with that team, and you just can't have that.
There's obviously Scott and Steve coming here and speaking is not something that happens often. They kind of implied a real sense of urgency to make sure that things happen and improve quickly. Do you feel that sense of urgency? Does that trickle down?
I live in that sense of urgency. I don't need anyone to speak to give me a sense of urgency. I'm not cruising through this thing, you know, acting like it's always like I got a bunch of time to get a team together. Every day I have urgency about this team, about how I coach them, about getting them better, about building consistent habits. So it's you know, I appreciate them speaking on my behalf and speaking about our team, but I live in that.
I was going to ask that. Do you think that the front office addressing it 10 games in was something that was necessary and needed?
Well, listen, however, I'm on board with whatever they decide to do when it comes to that stuff. They know I fully support them. We're in this together, obviously, but I take the brunt of that responsibility because I'm the head coach. I make these decisions of what's going on the court, what players play, who plays together, what plays we call the defensive system. That's on me. And so as much as I appreciate them, I own it. And that's just who I am.
Coach, you talk about urgency with this roster, and you can't help but see that there's a large number of contributors on this roster who are 23, 22, sometimes 19 years old, and development takes time. It tends to be a step forward, step back. Is this a roster that lends itself to urgency, in your opinion?
I think you have urgency with all rosters. You're going out to win every single game. If maybe you don't have the experience or whatever it takes to do it, but again, those are built-in excuses, and I'm not leaning on those. I can sit here and say, oh, we got 10 new guys, and my point guards is out, and blah, 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 blah. No, I'm not giving myself that out. I'm not giving our team that out. We're going to keep working at it until we get over the hump. You don't go into Dallas and beat arguably one of the best teams in the NBA, the highest scoring team in the NBA, the number one offense, and then come back and lay an egg. That's unacceptable, and we just got to fix that.
All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, guys.
Interesting turn of events tonight in New York. The Hawks are on the road, starting a 5-game trip in Portland. Trae Young to Jabari Parker in a 4-point Hawks lead. The Cleveland Cavaliers came into Madison Square Garden and just throttled the Knicks, leading by as many as 30 along the way. Colin Sexton with a career-high 31 points. But the real story is happening after the game. A few moments ago, President Steve Mills and General Manager Scott Perry of the Knicks came out to address the media about the performance of their team.
Hey, guys, we just felt like, given that this is our 10th game, we felt we had an obligation to come and speak to you guys. Obviously, Scott and I are not happy with where we are right now. We think the team's not performing to the level that we anticipated or we expected it to perform at, and it's something that we think we collectively have to do a better job of delivering the product on the floor that we said we would do at the start of this season. We still believe in our coaching staff. We believe in the plan that Scott and I put together and the players that we've assembled, but we also have to acknowledge that we haven't played at the level we expected to play at. We haven't played we've seen glimpses of how we can play as a team when everything comes together, but we've got to find a way to play complete games at the level that we expect our team to play at. And that's a responsibility that we take collectively, but I also think it's important for us to communicate to our fans that we're not happy where we are right now, and we're committed to making this better, but we have to, as a group, come together and be more consistent in terms of how we play.
With that, we'll take questions. Please wait for the mic.
Just out of curiosity, what spurred you guys to address us in this fashion? Because it's rare for it to happen.
We're not happy with where we are. This is not where we expect it to be at this point in 10 games in, and we just felt like we had an obligation to do that.
What's your sense about what the owner, James Dolan, feels about
Mike alluded to,
the
trying to
product so
capitalize
far
tonight before a capacity crowd
and the play of the team so far?
I mean, Jim still believes in the plan that we put together, but he's passionate as we are about this. So he would want us to have a better results on the floor as well. But I think Jim is a fan and believes in what we're doing, but he has the same kind of expectations that we have. And this is really about how we feel about what we should be doing and what we should be delivering as a group, and we all take responsibility for that. We talked to him during the game. I talked to him all the time.
Gives him one man to beat, and Gibson will throw it down.
Do you feel like the level
Team shooting as well. 3 for 11. Barrett on the drive, gets down the lane.
Nasty, sassy stuff by Barrett.
I think it's the lack of consistency there. For the most part, you've seen it, but you see sporadic efforts too, and that's what we talked about as we sat, during this game, and one of the reasons why we wanted to come out and address you guys, because we got to be consistent in all areas of the game, starting with effort.
Steve, I know you mentioned the 10 games, but is this something that if they played like they played Friday night, you wouldn't have come out tonight?
Well, I think if we had delivered that level of effort again tonight, and we probably wouldn't have come out. But this is something that we expected, a more complete game of basketball tonight than what happened on the floor, and we feel like we have an obligation to talk about that.
You talked about consistency, but does a lot of this come down to results as well? If this is a team that's winning 2 out of every 10 games, regardless of what the effort is, that will not be good enough in your eyes?
Well, again, we're not here focused on the record. We're focused on improvement and delivering a consistent effort, because we believe that if this team plays with the kind of effort they played on against Dallas, that we'll win basketball games. But the solution is for us to come out and give play a complete game of basketball every night.
For either of you, how difficult was tonight to watch, given the big win on Friday in Dallas?
I mean, obviously it was difficult. What you want to try to do in this league is stack consistent efforts. And after we, played the way we did down in Dallas, the expectation was that we would come back and at least play close enough to that level to give ourselves a better chance to win tonight. So that did not happen.
For both of you, what's the level of patience that you have with Coach Fizdale and this team to figure things out before you start considering making changes?
No, we have patience, and we believe in Coach, and we believe in the group that we put together. But we also know that, as Scott and I both have said a number of times, we need to find a way to have a consistent level of effort and execution that has to pull itself together. It's not good enough for us to play well for 2 quarters and then play poorly for 2 other quarters. What we have to do is find a way to play consistent basketball. And we believe in this group, and we believe they're capable of doing it, and we've just got to find a way to get them there.
I guess just for both of you guys, what's preventing this group from playing with that consistency that you want to see? What do you see? What's your analysis there?
I can't put my hand on what's preventing it. I think a lot of times, when you bring a lot of new guys together, we realize it might take some time with guys having to learn how to play with one another. But again, as we move forward, we're going to expect to see that improve. I think the willingness is there on the players' parts. It's just trying to figure out and adjust to playing, here in New York. And just to playing with one another. So that's what we're going to be looking for. Again, we've been below the line to this point, but hopefully this next stretch of 10 games that we'll get above that line and have more consistent results.
Scott, you just said it that it takes time for a group to come together when you've got this many new faces, but during the NBA season there's so little time for practice at this point. So where do you guys start in terms of the plan and what you want to see?
Well, again, I think, you take advantage of as much film time as you can, as much together time as a unit. And our coaches, they do a good job of spending a lot of time with these guys, instructing them on the game plan, individual development. We just got to keep, pounding the rock, if you will, until it finally takes over. And so that's what we're going to continue to do. And every opportunity we do have to practice, we're going to practice hard. We're going to practice to get better and to practice to establish more consistency.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Well, that was interesting.
That was interesting.
Steve Mills and Scott Perry came out. This was, I believe, right before David Fizdale's press conference, post-game after a lopsided loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They said that they had a conversation with owner James Dolan during the game.
Yeah.
It seems apparent that they were sent out to address the media after the game, and they said they wanted to talk about their team's inconsistency of effort and performance. They cited some form of consistency over and over and over again. What do you make of the situation, A, and what they said?
That's probably what the owner said to them, is that we need to figure out a way to be more consistent. And if you're a Knicks fan, you got to really be frustrated because you just had your best performance, in essence, of the year, right? You're coming off that Dallas win. You're feeling good. And then you come home against a Cleveland team they're not competing for a title.
Right.
So even if you're going to lose that game, you want it to be competitive. You want the people that paid all that money to come to the Garden tonight to at least feel good about the experience, win or lose. One thing about the Knicks fans and their fan base, like, they're not caught up in the record, but they're caught up in the product. So if you're not out there performing with a certain level of intensity and consistency and passion, they're going to pick up on that. And it was evident from the get-go in watching this game, because I'm watching on League Pass as we're going through it. I'm flipping through, and it's just you watch it, and it's got to be disappointing and frustrating. Yeah, they got a lot of young people, players that they're trying to develop, but that's no excuse for the fact that team just didn't seem to have a lot of fight, and they just looked lackluster, really, throughout the course of that game.
They were asked about David Fizdale and how much patience they have with him. I believe it was Steve Mills who said, "We have patience, believe in him and the group." Put yourself in Fiz's shoes for the moment. They're 2-8. No one expected the Knicks to contend this season, obviously. But when your team's not playing with consistent effort, that's an issue, and often that goes back to the coach. How do you address that?
Well, I think that there's too much talk going on, for one. I think that your playing has to do the talking for you. I don't like the fact that the president and the GM came out in this fashion because even though they said that they support their coach and they support their players and what the plan that they put together, at the same time, it almost seems like they're also throwing them under the bus a little bit by, this is something that they could have got together with the team tomorrow morning at practice and behind closed doors and said, look, we got to do better than this. But to come out and have a press conference like this after the game, when obviously people saw James Dolan really unhappy with them during the game. From what we heard, they didn't even come back out and sit in their seats. And then now they show up at this press conference. And so that puts even more pressure on these players who are already playing in the Mecca in New York. And we were joking earlier about they're looking forward to getting on the road and playing a road game. But this puts enormous pressure on them. They're playing without Elfrid Payton. They're playing without Dennis Smith Jr. So they do have some injuries. But, after what they did in Dallas, obviously, the expectation was for them to put together a better effort. And tonight against Cleveland, it wasn't Cleveland with LeBron James, Kyrie, and Kevin Love. And so, I didn't like it, and I think it puts everybody in a tough position. But, also at the same time, now we'll get to see what the guys that they have and that plan that they put together, we'll see what it's really made of.
They'll be in Chicago on Tuesday. And Greg, if you are one of those players, and either you're aware of this already or you're about to become aware of it when reporters start asking you about it, what goes through your mind?
Well, first of all, especially the veteran guys, you were aware of it in terms of the game itself, just by how they played and didn't really bring the kind of effort that you would have thought. A young team that's trying to find some confidence and momentum, biggest win of, best performance of the year in essence, and then you come out and lay an egg against a team that's beatable. That's just the reality. It's not a knock on Cleveland, but at this point, Cleveland, in a lot of ways, is in the same boat that the Knicks are in.
Right.
And I think that's what makes it even more frustrating. Both teams got new coaches. Both teams had a high lottery draft pick. Both teams have a lot of young players that they're trying to develop. And yet you look at Cleveland, and you've seen it over the course of the year. Cleveland's already got 4 wins. They seem to be further along in terms of their competitive spirit. And I think that's juxtaposed that to where the Knicks looked tonight, how they looked. And you can see why there's a lot of frustration with ownership and conversely with that fan base. And that's, I think, why this all came about. And it puts a lot of pressure, forget the players, it puts a lot of pressure on Fizdale. It really does, because he's had to answer a lot of questions already about this group. And it doesn't seem that his answers are really resonating with the players or with that fan base.
How do you squeeze more effort out of a team if you're not getting it?
Well, I think sometimes you have to simplify things and, get back to the basics in practice. Sometimes you got to have, a type of practice where it just gets really physical, so where the guys can kind of let their frustrations out. But it does put everybody in a difficult position going forward. And, a lot of times, and I've been in that situation as a coach too, where for the organization, you have to say certain things. You gotta be part of the team.
Sure.
But you may not agree with maybe some of the moves or how the team was put together and what have you.
You have to present a unified front.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so, they do support you until they don't. And so, it's a position that nobody envies, nobody wants to be in that position. But you just got to come to work and you got to do your job and you got to, you just got to grind harder. But just try to simplify everything for your team and take the pressure off your players, especially at home. It's tough playing in the Guard when you're not a good team and things aren't going well. And you want to just try to relieve some of that pressure from your players.
By the way, this was the Cavaliers' 11th straight win at Madison Square Garden, but most of those were LeBron James teams. 9 of those 11 included LeBron James. The last 2 did not. And this is going to be an interesting 48 hours or so between now and when they're in Chicago on Tuesday night. The chatter between now and then, the media coverage between now and then, and of course the performance on Tuesday night against the Bulls after all this has transpired. Who plays more, who plays less, how they play, the effort on the floor. All questions we'll be watching over the next couple of days. All right, game time continues here for a Sunday night. Last game of the night, now into the second quarter. Champs playing Staples Center against LeBron James and the Lakers. He rises up and knocks down that one. And then LeBron on the tip. It's an 8-point lead.